no. Doctor, in fact, we're not worried, and we want her to be jailed successfully. She must go to prison if convicted. This thing is wrong. In China, Ndlozi, they sentence these people. They don't care whether you are a billionaire. They don't care if you're whoever. They will jail you as long as you commit a crime, especially when you steal from the public purse. So, Lirina, this one, she must be jailed, and we don't care about her tears. Thank you, Doctor. Basilolo Mamiloti.
Morning, Mr. Ndlozi. I think there's a deliberate attempt by the US government and its allies to overthrow or rather instill a new regime of Western puppets here in South Africa. You must remember that South Africa is part of and the strategy used here is obviously that of race, to make us look like an illegitimate state. And therefore, these attempts to make this thing look real of the Afrikaners being suppressed in this country, it's nothing but a lie. And they are going to continue doing this until they get it right, like they did in Afghanistan, of course. But with that said, leader, Africa must unite. Thank you, Ndlozi. This is Claudio from West Rand. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Ndlozi. Le rena re o theletša ka mo Limpopo ka mo re gopela nno re betha ka music wa rena wa lekompo. Banna ba kae? Basadi ba kae?
Stay informed. Power Talk with Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, 9 a.m. to midday on Power 98.7.
Banna ba kae? Basadi ba kae? Hello, Khwadi? Khwadi le kae? Tobeng. Awa ngabe le kwi.
The statement from Mrs. Sala of Santago that now is premature of public enough to accuse and point the finger. And those people who came there, they were not visible in the patrol cars, written and so on. A person who's going to do crime is going to unmask, going to mask himself not to be seen. So they came on foot, killed the person in the car, shot him, and when that person is dead in the car, touch him. That was very cruel. And if you look into the industry, there's no smoke without fire. If you look at that issue at Korea, they're throwing stones at buses and so on. This industry has got problems. Mrs. Sala, please withdraw from what and get deeper into this matter with government. The ANC-led government has failed drastically in all avenues of life, including the tech industry. That such a black child should die like that, and such a statement that it's premature. Look, there's not even a school within the tech industry that regulates them to see. Or she can call all taxi bosses in South Africa, again it's Santago, and say, this is not going to happen. Musongutu used to run this tech industry well. If you come up with mischievous things, he locks the rank. And then you'll feel it. There won't be money coming in for daily checking. I've been a taxi owner myself and a taxi driver. You won't pay the installment. The only way to solve a problem in this industry is to create another problem. They don't have the school to regulate. They've been going out, stopping children and people not to get into their friends' cars or friends or relatives. It is wrong. The taxi industry doesn't accept a competition. One. They don't know that there's competition in business and opposition. We have Lion Lager today from South African breweries. We've got Parcel. You've got companies that sell spirit, Gilby, Seagram. You call those companies. Those are opposition. You go to Maraba Star, where they are Indians. They are 13 Indians. They're selling one thing. Why can't? When this taxi industry is our thing from long, we begin to taxis, going to body school, traveling every day. but it's risky. Even if we commuters complain about certain things, Miss Pala, please withdraw. You are on the comfort zone of life, and you want to protect things that are not. You remember there were fights between taxi bosses. They were talking about Simanyoni and whoever, and the other one passed on, and all this. What did they do today? That such a young boy who left home to go and make a difference in his family. Did you see the house where that boy came from? And the family is pleading, we don't have nothing. We see poverty, yet people are on the comfort zone. No, Mrs. Farah, withdraw.
Thank you.
We feel very bad about this thing. And the government, we know, it's a national dialogue. We can also get to the national dialogue this thing. That we discuss the taxi industry from scratch. They must do something. It's too much.
All
That
right.
boy, the way he died,
Yeah.
the structures and the statement of Mrs. Fala, how she's in the comfort zone. They also
All
she
right,
must be a comrade. She must
Are
be with us.
Thank you so
She's not
much.
with us, doctor.
Thank
She
you. I
must
appreciate
just protect the organization. She must do more. There's a lot that needs to be done. And the MEC as well. You can see these children are not serious. You make a task team, that task team won't do anything. Task
Okay.
team, including of Santago, police and what. No.
Thank you, Khwadi. Ke a leboha, Minahane. Ntate Khwadi. Let's take Jabu, final caller today in Centurion. Jabu,
Good morning, Dr. Ndlozi. How are you?
unjani sis?
Yeah, Pila. Thank you for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
So, I'm calling in with this concern. I'm a student to pregnancy.
Hi.
So, this is a crisis. And from my side, I don't think enough is done to transition these kids from school to the tertiary. So these kids are always guided by the teachers, by the parents, and everyone in the society. And then now comes matric, and we sort of release them into this tertiary space.
Jabu, have you seen the
tertiary
pregnancy
life.
numbers in the schools as well?
I've seen that, but
Jabu, Hambo, your argument is destabilized.
yes.
Sesikolweni, high school, kuyalalana. University, bayalalana. No safe sex. Zero.
So
Inkinga
so
yini?
that so I'm talking about specifically the ones that we've sort of probably they were saved from school. Now they're in tertiary. So the reason why I'm also making this comment is because we are running the student accommodation. You find an A student that came into these accommodations. They were performing very well. They got great grades. Now they change between school and tertiary. They cannot handle it. There is so much freedom, and what's in Mama Gangbon, we're just doing whatever that we want whenever that we can, without transitioning them into
the freedom to be pregnant. I don't know.
the freedom to be pregnant, guys. So it is a crisis. I don't know what we can do. I know sometime in history, long time ago, there were nurses that were going into schools, right, to try and talk about this and offer prevention to our kids.
We need
and
to
also,
preach safe sex, I suppose. Yeah.
Safe sex. And as
Now ngathi kubona bangayenzi, uyababanga.
We are like, so as parents as well, how much are we doing? Because as a parent, I can see my child. I was a child myself. When I was that age, what was happening in my life? You know, we need to go back and check there and be honest to our kids and have the open communication and say, these are the things that are going to happen, and these are the steps that we need to take between you and me. I mean, a parent first in my house. I can see how active my child is. Then what am I doing about it? You know.
Thank you.
So
thank you very much, Sis Jabu. Thank you very much indeed. That's Sis Jabu in Centurion. It's 10:00 hours, Bandana Benkosi. We're gonna take news right after the CEO of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange joins us here in studio. Let's take the news with Nyakalo Defu.
Power News. Thanks, Mbuyiseni. The top stories at this hour. The Eldorado Park child that was raped and killed allegedly by her father will be laid to rest today. And the South African industry says foot and mouth disease is totally out of control. With the news at 10, a very good morning to you. I'm Nyakalo Tefu, the Eldorado Park child that was killed and raped allegedly by her father will be arrested today. The 4-year-old girl died at Baragwanath Hospital after she was admitted in the intensive care unit due to severe beatings. The child's father have since been arrested for several charges that include murder, rape, and child abuse. The accused are due to reappear in court next month. Affected family members and Eldorado Park residents demand justice for the child. Power News reporter Bafana Nzimande has the details.
Eldorado Park residents today will bid farewell to a 4-year-old girl that was raped and killed allegedly by her father. The 32-year-old man appeared in court yesterday for murder, rape, compelled rape, assault, and child abuse. The child's mother appeared at the same court for murder, child abuse, and failure to report a sexual offense on a minor. Both accused abandoned their bail application. Some of the affected family members were in court seeking closure.
We as a family, we are devastated because we didn't expect this from my brother, and my mother never raised a rape and a murderer. So the drugs took over, and unfortunately, the low mistake is caused. But we as a family, we are devastated. Even my mother at home, she's sick. She can't accept this as a parent. That's why I came to court today, because we also need to know as a family what is going on and what is next.
The case has been postponed to October 9 for further investigations. Involved parties cannot be named because the case involves a minor. The child will be laid to rest today. Bafana Nzimande, Power News, Eldorado Park.
The South African red meat industry says foot and mouth disease is totally out of control. The Red Meat Producers Organization warns that the shortage of vaccines remains a major hurdle, with supplies currently being imported from Botswana. Experts say massive vaccination campaigns, strict quarantine, and better traceability systems are essential to containing the outbreak. However, there is hope that local vaccine production could begin by March next year, which may help bring the disease under control within 18 months. Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen previously raised concerns about the matter and assured that work is underway to address it.
Once we're able to, through the veterinary services provincially in the various provinces, but also nationally, give assurance to our trading partners that we've contained, but we also have a surveillance system in place to ensure that we can keep them updated. We'll be able to recommence with that. Well, at the moment, there are two big outbreaks on KwaZulu-Natal and here in Gauteng, but we have picked up cases in Mpumalanga and also now in the Northwest Province.
Parliament's ad hoc committee set up to investigate explosive claims made by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is yet to finalize its terms of reference. The committee reconvened yesterday, but members could not agree on the scope of the investigation. It's tasked with probing allegations of threats to national made by Mkhwanazi last month. Power News' Lerato Motsa has more.
While the ad hoc committee has until October to deliver a report to the National Assembly, it's already disagreeing on the scope of the investigation. During the second meeting since it was established to investigate allegations made by KwaZulu-Natal Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, members of Parliament did not find common ground over the committee's terms of reference. Among others, discussions are centered on whether the committee should adopt a protocol on classified and sensitive information. This is submitted by the MK Party after the committee failed to agree on the final draft. Addressing committee members, MK Party Member of Parliament David Skosana made these remarks.
Is that when the report of Palapala, Minister Senzo Mkhunu classified that report, we cannot work like that. This committee it should not be a talk shop. We are not here for optics, and we must dig deep down to this matter and not be told that matters have been classified. There's matters classified, we know, but I was just emphasizing that we should not be told that, no, this matter is classified, the committee has no power.
In response, Parliament's legal advisor, Advocate Andile Tejana, had this to say.
So there has to be a protocol in my view, in the sense that even if it means that information must be given to the Speaker, and of course the Speaker and the Secretary of Parliament are the people who must have access where that information is going to be stored. A protocol does not necessarily mean that this particular committee will deal with classified information, but we are just envisaging a situation where people are confronted with a situation where, for instance, classified information is given to Parliament, and I think we have to have control mechanisms.
And Limpopo Premier Dr. Popi Ramathuba has rubbished claims that she is involved in corruption. The allegations claim that Ramathuba and Cooperative Governance MEC Basikopo Makamu were involved in a 1 billion rand corruption scandal at the Mogalakwena local municipality. But Premier spokesperson Ndabe Ramakwela has rubbished the claims, saying that they are false and reflect a fundamental misunderstanding of the operational dynamics within government. He says municipalities operate independently and municipal managers do not report to the Premier.
Office of the Premier wants to be unequivocally. These assertions are entirely false. They reflect a fundamental misunderstanding of the operational dynamics within government. Municipal council and their municipal managers operate independently and do not operationally report to the Premier or the MEC. So the Premier may only intervene in local government matters under specific circumstances after receiving reports from the MEC for Coxter. Thus, the allegations are not only unfounded, but appear to be part of the deliberate smear campaign rather than a genuine inquiry into the truth.
A look at your financial indicators. The rand is trading at 17 rand 63 cents to the US dollar, 23 rand 84 cents to the pound, 20 rand 59 cents to the euro. Gold's trading at $3,339.59 a fine ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $66.01 a barrel. Recapping the top story in Panis at this hour, the Eldorado Park child that was raped and killed, allegedly by her father, will be laid to rest today.
In power traffic, let's check out what's happening in your roads. If you're traveling on Malibongwe Drive, there's some slow-moving traffic to expect approaching the Witkoppen Road intersection. Those delays start as you're passing Epsom Avenue. Over in Four Ways, Cedar Road southbound as you're getting out of Broadacre seems very slow as well. That's as you're headed towards the Cedar Square Shopping Center. If you're in Crown City and you're traveling on Main Reef Road westbound, you can also expect some congestion as you're headed towards the Church Street intersection. Albertina Sisulu Road is very slow in Fordsburg. Those delays are in both directions approaching the Oriental Plaza.
Power News. On FM, online, and GSTV channel 889. This is Power 98.7.
This is Power 98.7. And now you're listening to Power Talk with Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, 9 a.m. to midday, taking your calls on 0861 987
Welcome back, Bantwana Benkosi. Nginibonge nonke about those calls that came through and the open line, and certainly the breakfast team had a bust, as I understand, around the pregnancy question. I will try make efforts to go broadcast the show from UJ to understand why are students getting pregnant. But we now turn to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and I'm joined in studio by the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the JSE, Dr. Leila Fourie. Thanks deeply for coming and creating time to come and speak with us.
Thanks, Mbuyiseni. It's awesome to be here and great to chat to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so let me get right into it. The JSE at 130 years. It's older than apartheid, it's older than the ANC, it's older than the internet, it's older than space travel, it's older than all the companies listed at the moment on the JSE. It's older than all of them, maybe the exception of one. What is its current profile, its standing in the world, and its market capitalization?
Well, Mbuyiseni, we have been around for 138 years in November this year. So we've been here for a long time. We started in a mining tent, and that's where the first listings happened. And we've been through world wars. As you say, we've been through apartheid. We've been through the dawning of the new democracy. We have grown tremendously. I'll take us back to the 90s, because I'm sure most of the listeners have been, some of them have been around since then or just after. In the 90s, we had an open outcry system. We used to have people shouting their trades. That then shifted to a digital system in 1996, where we went online. If you come to the JSE now, you won't find any people shouting out to book their trades. It all happens behind very sophisticated computers. And since then, we've invested heavily in technology. We have very sophisticated markets, and we trade markets across all kinds of assets. So commodities like grains and white maize. We trade equities, which is like Standard Bank, MTN, Boxer. And we also trade derivatives or futures. And then you can also buy bonds, which is government debt. And so we've really built the market over the past couple of decades, and we've seen a vertical growth trajectory, and we've seen a lot more international interest in our market. More than 30% of our counters are dual listed. So companies like BHP was previously listed in London. They cancelled their listing in London, and now they are only listed in Australia and South Africa. So South Africa is doing very well on the global stage to attract funding from internationals. We are 22 trillion rand right now as in total market cap. And we've got just less than 300 companies listed on the exchange. And the exchange has really grown, particularly we're outperforming our global markets at the moment. If you look at the stats, the NASDAQ was year to date is only up by 13%, and our top 40 is up by 24%. So the JSE companies are outperforming both New York, and even the S&P is only up by 9.7. So this is the place to invest this year, and people are getting returns where they've lost a lot of money on some of the large counters that have contracted globally.
Talking about the place to invest, the profile over the years of the JSE has experienced massive delistings. And this is at the backdrop of the success that you are putting. And I'm interested in a nuanced experience of this, where at the height of its operations, there were 800 companies, and now less than 300. Often the explanation that is given to this varies from, investors wanting policies. South Africa exhibits signs of a lot of political and policy instability. And yet, the 80s and the 70s were dramatically violent in South Africa. And there were investments on the one hand. On the other, in a different show, when the chairman's conversation hosted Mr. Rupert, he had something very interesting to say, Johan Rupert, that the Mbeki years were the most stable economically. It's like Mbeki got it right and we didn't invest. Are these delistings not mainly because there is a problem with the fact that our government is black-led?
Actually, the stats are very interesting, Mbuyiseni. If you look at the holistic picture, you've got to look at this over a 30-year period. And yes, we did have 800. In fact, 30 years ago, we had 682 listings. At that time, our market cap, so the value of the shares times the number of shares in issue, was 800 billion rand. 20 years ago, that went up to 1.8 trillion, and we had 466 listings. So we had a huge decline in the number of listings. Now our market cap is 22 trillion rand. It's 350% of GDP, and we have much fewer listings. Now, if you look at the number of delistings over these periods, in the 90s, we averaged 58 delistings. In the 2000s, we averaged 47 delistings. In the 2010s, we only averaged 21 delistings. So it sounds like a very dramatic point, and I know a lot of people do raise it. A lot of the companies that are delisting are small companies that aren't liquid, and they are not able to get traction, and they're not able to grow. The larger companies that we've got are providing our savers who are effectively investing through pension funds, and that is really looking after their future in big, stable companies. Now, I'm not suggesting that big, stable companies are the only and the most important part of our economic growth, because we all know that the growth node comes from the small and medium enterprises. That's where Tesla started. It's where Amazon started, all in garages. So we have seen a drop in the number of listings, but the listings that are the companies that are delisting are those smaller companies. And so I think it's important to see these things in context, and our markets are very deep and liquid. We are the 19th largest by market cap, but in GDP terms, we are between 38th and 40th. As a country. So we punch way above our weight in the financial markets, and the value of that is that it gives the man in the street the opportunity to save for their retirement, and they save through their pension funds, which therefore then invest in the listed entities.
But you are presiding over an entity that should be hungry for lots of listings.
Yeah.
You do want the numbers to go back to 800. That's not only a strong stock exchange, but also the idea that at the moment there's also very little diversity. Majority of the activity is concentrated in few companies, which, as you say, are big. And I'm putting it to you that at the center sometimes the true reason for less listings on the JSE may be this question of the confidence of investors in the South African political stability. And I argue, and I'd like your reaction to that much more directly, that it is mainly not because of policy instability. There was more instability politically under apartheid, particularly in the last 2 decades of apartheid, than there ever was under this democracy. So that the true reason maybe is confidence. It's other people may call it racism.
There's definitely confidence, and where I define confidence as investor confidence, does build build a perception, and it does build activity. There are also cyclicality factors, and you mentioned Johan Rupert's comment about Mbeki. One of the contextual factors that was very much in Mbeki's favor when he was in power was the commodity super cycle. Commodities were booming, and that not only grew our mines, but the mining tax that was paid grew the economy, and also they would have had much more capital investment, those mines, which was job creating. And so all of these things have a compounding effect. And there was a super cycle in the commodities environment. And we do have different cycles that affect the size and the effectiveness of these companies. Now, we've seen mining has been a highly concentrated sector on the exchange. In the early teens, that sort of 2012 to 2015, it was much bigger than it is now. But ironically, we do want more listings, we do want more diversification, but we also want quality listings. And there was an active decision taken, in fact, under Mbeki's period, when he was around, in the 2000s, during that sort of massive commodities boom to actively delist some of the smaller companies that were just too risky and that shouldn't have been listed in the first place. And so the number of listings went down, but our overall market capitalization went up.
So what your strategy then is for diversification?
Yeah.
Of what is listed there in the
So
JSE?
what we are doing, we are a highly concentrated market. We've got, let's say, 6 big banks, we've got a handful of big mines, and we've got 2 massive or 3 big telcos, one coming to list soon, Cell C. And then we've got Naspers, which is obviously a giant. And what we are doing is we've recently introduced JSE private placements, which is a private market. So instead of companies having to comply with listings requirements, these companies now can apply for funding in a fit-for-purpose, less red tape type environment. We've got more than 50 companies who are looking for funding, and we've got more than 25 billion rand in investor capital, so dry powder, guys looking to invest. These companies range from renewable companies, people building hospitals, schools, various different companies, and that is proving to be very successful in helping to diversify. We're also doing quite a lot of work in the SME market. So I think those are definitely areas that we are working to, and we are also looking to try and improve and increase the number of international listed companies. We are working with the investment banks into Africa. We're working to encourage, we've got a few listings from NASDAQ and from the London Stock Exchange. And all of these kinds of companies give us diversification of investment opportunities for our people who are building for the future.
The listing requirements are often blamed for small players. And I wanted to, earlier on offline, you were telling me about the deliberate push for small, medium enterprises to play in the space. And this, obviously, from how I'm reading your immediate comment, it's much difficult to play in the JSE as a small, medium enterprise. Yet this is the story of how, including the big tech companies, this is the story of how they start. Venture capitalists, this is the story of how they start. Startups, this is the story of how they start, and their capacity to play in that space and get investments seems as well to be blamed on listing requirements.
And again, so I think there are 2 options. Firstly, the private markets, and they can get debt or they can get equity through that private markets, which is JSE private placements or JPP. And then we recently introduced a project called market segmentation. And we basically positioned the main board into 2 different segments, the prime segment and the general segment. And 27% of eligible issuers have gone into the general segment. And then this new structure is more of a fit for purpose, suitable, efficient regulation. And it's tailored to the size and the liquidity of the company. So these companies are able to still build up investor confidence, but they don't have as much of what you would call the red tape. So we've got more capital enabling measures that they can make use of, significant cost savings in their listing, their costs to be listed, efficient, cost-effective financial reporting, and also greater flexibility for the boards to manage the business. So we are very alive to the fact that all big companies started small. Capitec is a great example. And these companies must be given a chance, and we must ensure that we enable seed capital and we open up capital access.
Let me ask about then these listing conditions. And you operate in the most unequal society in the world. With your market capitalization at over 20 trillion rands.
Yeah.
You operate in an economy with chronic unemployment. the unemployment that is on the rise. What is JSE's view? Firstly, diagnosis of the problem of unemployment. And in what way could you assist capital investment into labor-intensive industries, taking into consideration that one of the problems for international players to come play in that space, to expose themselves to that risk, is that local capitalists themselves are not exposing themselves to that risk of labor-intensive industries, which are often, long-term type of investments where, return is going to come in 10 years. If they are startups, we know in 3 years they might get out and you start seeing returns. In what way are you driving, particularly the JSE, towards the problem of unemployment?
Yeah, and unemployment is a real scourge in this country. Of course, the unemployment rate doesn't take account of the informal sector, and there is a lot of earnings generated which doesn't come into either our GDP growth, our tax, or our unemployment figures. And there are various different views on how big that sector is. But back to your question around what is the JSE doing? The JSE is a very important capital formation environment. And unfortunately, over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of high net worth individuals, a lot of trusts moving their money offshore. And many of those guys are speculative. They're willing to take a risk, and their risk appetite is much bigger. And so the ability and the possibility of our young people who are opening up tech businesses or renewable companies are struggling to access money. If you look at what's happening in Kenya, that business is booming. Why are we not growing as we should? And I think more needs to be done, both by government and by private sector. What the JSE is doing is we collaborate with our broader ecosystem, so government funders, both debt and equity and DFI and alternative funders, and also the development agencies. And then we do funding readiness training and direct funding readiness support. So
how much funding are we speaking
about? That is
about?
for SMEs, and we're talking. There is a capital ask of more than 15 billion. In fact, I think it's closer to 20 by just the companies that are listed on our JPP platform or who are have asked for funding. So we host funding readiness roadshows. We've done a number in the Cape, in a couple of other provinces, and we're expanding. Recently, we were in Soweto, and we had various roadshops and workshops, even in areas like Saldanha. And ultimately, we have these capital matching events. So this year we are hosting an event in Gauteng and in Limpopo in November. And then in the Western Cape, we'll do in February. And this is really trying to bring together funders and people who need funding. All of these people often require a bit of support in how do you develop a business plan, how do you position your message for investors, because they're specialists in producing whatever their goods are that they're producing. And so there's a lot of work that's required to make them funding ready and bankable. And then there's a lot of work to try and attract those funders. We also believe that tax incentives are a very effective measure to encourage investment into this sector. Australia and Canada have booming exploration initiatives, and we are falling way behind. We're the 6th largest exploration. Our exploration is 6th across the continent. Burkina Faso, DRC are ahead of us. And we need more policy enablement to encourage investors to invest into these businesses.
If you've just joined us, Bantwana Benkosi, this is Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. I'm in a conversation with the CEO of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Dr. Fourie. And we're going to take the headlines and continue thereafter with the conversation, the headlines by Nyakalo Defu. Stay tuned.
Thanks, Mbuyiseni. Good morning. In newsmaking headlines at this hour, the South African red meat industry says foot and mouth disease is totally out of control. The Red Meat Producers Organization warns that the shortage of vaccines remains a major hurdle, with supplies currently being imported from Botswana. Experts say massive vaccination campaigns, strict quarantine, and better traceability systems are essential to containing the outbreak. However, there is hope that local vaccine production could begin by March next year, which may help bring the disease under control within 18 months. Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen previously raised concerns about the matter and assured that work is underway to address it.
Once we're able to, through the veterinary services provincially in the various provinces, but also nationally, give assurance to our trading partners that we've contained, but we also have a surveillance system in place to ensure that we can keep them updated. We'll be able to recommence with that. Well, at the moment, the two big outbreaks are in KwaZulu-Natal and here in Gauteng, but we have picked up cases in Mpumalanga and also now in the Northwest Province.
In other news, the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, is calling on government to protect the local manufacturing sector by imposing tariffs and cracking down on tire dumping, which the union says is damaging local production. NUMSA's General Secretary Ivan Jim also urged SARS to take action against tax avoidance by multinational companies. He made the remarks during a media briefing yesterday following severance package negotiations with Goodyear, which recently shut down its plant in the Eastern Cape. NUMSA had rejected an initial offer of 50,000 rand, but a revised agreement will now see workers receiving a minimum of 100,000 rand, along with long-serving employees, some with over 26 years, getting packages averaging 1 million rand. More on these and other stories at 11.
Sell your car now and get paid instantly. There's no waiting when it comes to WeBuy Cars. Simply complete the online form on WeBuy to get started. Looking for your next ride? Explore thousands of vehicles with finance and all extras available, online and in store. Whether you're buying or whether you're selling, WeBuy Cars has what you need.
Power traffic.
A very good morning to you once again. If you are in four-ways and traveling on Cedar Road southbound, you can expect delays as you are approaching the Uranium Street intersection. Those delays are as you're traveling past the Cedar Lakes, heading towards the Cedar Square Shopping Center. Malibongwe Drive eastbound is slow in Kaya Sand as you're approaching the Bit Open Road intersection. If you're traveling on Winnie Mandela Drive southbound, that's in Sandhurst, you will bump into some delays from Santon Drive. Those delays are clear just after you pass the Sterling Road intersection. If you are traveling on the N3 northbound, that's in Bedford View, there's some queuing traffic to expect between Van Buren Road and the Glulies interchange. A number of traffic lights are out around the city of Johannesburg this morning. If you're traveling on the N1 highway, traffic lights are out at the Bears Nodia Drive exit in Rand Park Ridge. As you're traveling further along Bears Nodia Drive, those traffic lights are out at Eastwood Avenue. Those lights in the east of Joburg on Modderfontein Road at the Van Riebeck Avenue intersection, as well as further along Modderfontein at the N3 highway interchange. And remember, if you come across any further traffic incidents, tweet at Power 987 Traffic. For Power Traffic, I'm Rustenburg.
Power traffic.
Hi everyone, I'm Dean McPherson, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. Since I was appointed just over a year ago, we've laid a firm foundation in the department, and after tabling our 7.6 billion rand budget for growth, we're now turning plans into action. That means that we're moving government departments into our own state-owned buildings to save you billions of rands in rent. We're unlocking public land to build affordable housing, create shelters for victims of gender-based violence, and boost family values. We're also tackling corruption head-on without fear or favour, and we're giving young South Africans real opportunities through a reformed key program that focuses on skills and long-term development. And this is only the beginning. Your support is building a capable and professional department that delivers infrastructure, creates jobs, and public assets to work for the public good. This is yet to come because we're building a better country for you. Thanks,
Where will of action are rewriting the future.
It's going to be very crucial. I am one person who
Woman of Action is. Comment online and across all our socials with your answer. Power FM 987. Using the hashtags 987 women and you could be a winner. T's and C's apply. 2025 987 women from the 27th to the 29th of August. Celebrating bold, dynamic, and impact-driven women of power. Hashtag 987 women of action. Now we're talking.
In a world where business moves at lightning speed, staying ahead means embracing innovation. From digitizing government, private 5G networks, safeguarding businesses from cyber threats, MTN Business is at the forefront of change, driving conversations that move the industries forward. Our Business is proudly brought to you by MTN, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. MTN. Today, we make moves.
Experience the Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, the true embodiment of a woman of action. Strong, resilient, and ambitious. This Women's Month, Mitsubishi Motors and Power 98.7 are celebrating the drive that confident women demonstrate every day. We're looking for women who lead with power and purpose. Nominate yourself or an exceptional woman you know for a chance to win a chauffeur-driven experience to a live interview on Power Drive on Thursday this week. Enter the Women of Action series now at power987.co.za. For an added advantage, book a test drive of the sleek and stylish Outlander Sport. Be the force you want to be. Brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors. Drive your ambition.
Power Talk with where your voice is heard and opinion matters.
We're still with the CEO of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Bantwana Benkosi. If you want to pose questions or join the conversations, 0861987000. The CEO would really like to hear from you, as I do myself. I want to go back to this question of unemployment, just to wrap it up. And my sense is to push back on the conditions. I see the work to raise and try get people who need funding with people who are funding. But are you unable to say to the big guys, let's set ourselves employment targets?
So Mbuyiseni, we are operating in a very complex regulatory environment. We've got the Companies Act, we've got BEE legislation, and then the JSE has its own listings requirements, and the accountants have their own IFRS requirements. And we need to make sure that we all work together in a harmonized environment. In fact, I met with the BEE commissioner a couple of days ago, and we certainly work together with all of those agencies and all of those pieces of legislation, but we would not put into our legislation something that repeats or duplicates what happens in another. So we have that you need to remain in line, and those companies need to comply with BEE requirements. What each company is doing is really, I think, the important question. And what the JSE is doing is that we have a program where we sponsor Black-owned brokers. And we introduced this in 2016. And those companies that with the Financial Sector Code qualify with 51% Black ownership and a turnover of less than 100 million, we give them 33% off their cash trading, their equity trading fees, and that's paid quarterly in advance. And we also give them 33% off their connectivity fees. And so this is our way of reducing the costs and enabling employment. And I think each business in their CSI and in their BEE programs need to be focusing on those sorts of elements and making sure that the money gets to the right recipient, that there are no intermediaries, and that it achieves genuinely what it's meant
I
to
see
achieve.
BEE, but another day we'll talk about that. I think there's a very misleading terms of reference in that public conversation, but you address a lot of these, and I mean, you're sort of a captain of South Africa's capital markets. And I argue, shouldn't the messaging be that the investment strike needs to stop? We need to, and that will bring with it international investors. We need to shift the attitude of the big players that South Africa is a country that is actually working. You can invest in capital, labor intensive industries where you're going to get returns in a few years, that this is also the destination for that type of investment, not just Taiwan, South Korea, and Brazil, but that this place must not be ignored first by South African big players. This is the messaging, in my view, that I think is not being acknowledged, and that is necessary to shift our fortunes when it comes to chronic unemployment, which is racially structured, gender structured, but also that can actually lead to growth.
And Mbuyiseni, the whole purpose of the JSE is to enable A, capital to be raised, and then B, the man in the street to invest, and they invest through their pensions to earn, to save. And on the capital access, what we are doing is trying to ensure that all our regulations and the access to capital is available to companies, and thereby they're able to invest in expanding their mines, in building renewable factories, in job creating initiatives. And one of the critical things that is required to make capital flow is investor confidence, both business confidence and consumer confidence. And unfortunately, over the last 10 years, we've had a low growth environment, and investors shy away from environments that are not growing. We have had a lot of structural change over the last, since over the last 2 years or so, we're starting to see a lot more investment into infrastructure. The current cycle, the bull cycle in the commodities environment, will hopefully encourage those minds to take that money and invest more, which is job creating. And so our whole purpose is to get capital to flow, and the outcome is job creating.
I want to go now to the regulatory environment, and you were celebrating being one of the proper stock exchanges in the world, top 20 globally. What happened? How did you not see Steinhoff and the corruption, which included what are supposed to be credible actors in the different industries? What happened to Steinhoff? How did you miss it? And what are the lessons? And I'm interested in a similar question, which you, of course, will be able to guide us on your understanding and your approach on it. Steinhoff's experience, the lessons that can be drawn to curb illicit financial flows, particularly that we are told in the continent we lose 88 billion a year to illicit financial flows. Some of these people who are engaged in illicit financial flows are listed companies on the JSE.
Yeah, Mbuyiseni, we operate, as I said earlier, in a very complex environment where you've got law enforcement, you've got the NPA, you've got government through things like the Companies Act and various other regulations around fraud, and then you've got the accountants with their requirements for forensic auditing or general auditing, and then you've got JSE listings requirements. Unfortunately, when you have bad actors, they often work in a very, very expeditious and very smart way, and sometimes it takes longer for these fraudulent activities to actually come to the surface. And what I can say is that the JSE works very closely with law enforcement. We work with global law enforcement and local, because many of these syndicated fraudulent activities are activities that cross our borders. And we are working, and we continue to work to ensure that we do our best to avoid these sorts of things. But fraud is a very difficult thing to pick up in the initial stages sometimes.
But what lessons then have you drawn? Have you done something to not have a repeat of Steinhoff?
So we certainly work very closely with the accountants to make sure that the auditing that takes place is rigorous and addresses any of the loopholes. We look at our listings.
Steinhoff, the accounting firms were the ones concealing. They were the ones complicit in the fraud. And this is the case as well with a lot of illicit financial activities. The reliance on self-auditing and the fact that complicit in that self-auditing are the accounting firms that in some instances actually even promote illicit financial flows, that they can get you to avoid tax.
So in Mbuyiseni, we work with all of the law enforcers. We work with all of the professional firms to root out any form of corruption.
Okay. Tongaat, Hewlett. It's a much more recent case. They misled in their financials, inflated their financials, and misled investors. You find them 7.5 million rands. That's a slab. That's not tough. That's not acting, would you say?
So in Mbuyiseni, we are governed by the Financial Markets Act, and our fines are limited to 7.5 million rand per indiscretion. So we find them the max. There are other fines that any organization that contravenes the legislation or our regulations that they would have to pay, and those could be levied by the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. They could be levied by the courts through the Companies Act infringement. So there are many other avenues. The JSE avenue is limited by the Financial Markets Act.
So in a way, this is the highest, the highest you could find them. That's your direct response.
Yeah,
do you wish you could have found them more?
We would like to do everything that we can to avoid any of this sort of behavior, of course.
Okay. You were speaking earlier about BEE and the racial diversification. I'm interested in this concept of the township economy, and some of the companies I did indicate Boxer, whose operations are in rural areas and townships, but its ownership is still dominated largely by the big players. I wonder if there is something that JSE is able to do to get township and rural folk to participate, so that it's not, it is a township business, so to speak. It's competing with the Pakistanis. It's competing with, tuck shops and side hustlers and all of that. Its ownership share should reflect those people.
Yeah. So Boxer is a great example, and it was one of my highlights in the listings environment. They listed on the 28th of November in 2024, and their listing was 29 billion rand, and their shares have increased by 7% since then, and so it's now 31 billion rand in market cap. And it was a very exciting listing to see. And let's not forget that many of the people in the townships who are employed in the formal sector have pensions, and their pensions are invested in the JSE. So it doesn't, and many people don't make that connection. But when you go and retire and you withdraw your pension that started as few 100,000 rand and is now 20 million rand because of the growth of those companies, that township person is enjoying the benefit of the exchange, and that connection is often not made. What we are focusing on, and I think is a very important thing, is financial literacy and building an interest in the stock exchange by the JSE. So we run our investment challenge. We have 50,000 learners, both high school and university, who take part in it. It's a trading game, and they earn prizes of up to 330,000 rand at the end of the year, 500 rand for each of the top performers every month. And I'm always overwhelmed by how many of those kids who come directly from the townships have learnt not only about how to invest in MTN or ABSA, but they've learnt how to trade in derivatives and single stock futures, and they've really impressive. We are hosting this weekend She Invests conference, and we've got a lot of the people from the ground, from the townships, who are coming to our seminar, and this is really to empower them with an understanding of how to save, of how to invest in the stock exchange, and how to stay there for a long time so that their money that starts off as a small token amount really grows and compounds in the interest. And we also have investor podcasts, which we run on a regular basis, and those have been an awesome resource for people just to get to understand what is driving each of the companies, how to think about investments, what products could they invest in that could be not as expensive. So we do a lot from a township economy perspective in empowering people with the right information on how to invest.
Okay, that's the CEO Bantwana Benkosi of the JSE. 0861987000 if you want to join the conversation. Indeed, this is Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, on Power 987. Doc, the tariff wars. What's JSE's exposure? And I mean, capital in the continent. I mean, if you could answer that, the idea of alternative markets, Africa's free trade policies, and I realize that even the big guys in the continent, they don't see Johannesburg Stock Exchange as the destination for the listing of their companies. Nigerian tycoons, Egyptian tycoons, and so on and so forth. But now with these tariff wars, some people think it's an opportunity, but take us through the diagnosis of the JSE, particularly its exposure.
Yeah, and Mbuyiseni, actually, tariff wars have not been bad for the country. In some ways, in other ways, very concerning for certain sectors. What we've seen as a result of the tariff wars is a pivoting out of the US economy. So the US used to attract 80% of international flows, and for a decade now, and they've earned massive returns as a result of that. And because of the I'd say the coalition of the wounded, more than 60 countries are affected by all these tariffs, which go up and down, and many of which haven't actually been
policy uncertainty.
Exactly. In the extreme form. And so volatility has been good for the exchange, but what has been most interesting is that the tariff wars coincided or happened just after a few months, 6 months after the establishment of the GNU. And South Africa started to get back on the radar of the investor base internationally. And it's also coincided with the uptick in the mining industry. And so all our mines are doing very well. And so we've seen a much greater level of trading on our exchange. On average, last year, we traded 21 billion. This year to date, we've traded 29 billion per day. And so you can see a massive uptick, huge volatility. Despite the trade wars. The uncertainty in the trade wars. And that's because even though South Africa, certain industries may be negatively affected, we are also starting to produce a promising level of future growth, an expectation of future growth. Load shedding is more or less a thing of the past. There is a lot happening to restructure and improve Transnet. There is a lot more infrastructure investment that's going on. It's not yet translating into economic growth, but there's certainly the promise of that. And so those things together with investors globally shifting, and not all of them, some of them shifting out of the US, South Africa's offering returns that is way above the other, the rest of the world. So the emerging market index, other emerging markets, including South Africa, have increased by 18%. Our top 40 is up by 24% year to date. So, and our companies in South Africa have been congenitally undervalued because of the previous sort of low growth decade that we've had. Gradually, investors have disinvested from the country. Now we're starting to see green shoots. I wouldn't say that it's, that we're in the pound seats yet. We certainly are developing and growing, and I'm hopeful, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
But do you have a campaign actively in the continent, the African continent that is, to get more listings from continental players?
We partner with the investment banks and we go and meet these guys. And we certainly are targeting single big names on the continent. Many of these big names think that it's very glamorous and they'll get more liquidity if they go and list on the London Stock Exchange or NASDAQ or New York.
In your term of office, will you land any of them?
Well, we've already landed some of the big ones. I mentioned BHP Billiton, who's not an African continental play, but it's an international play who wasn't happy with the LSE. I would love to do that, and I will take that as my mandate from you, Mbuyiseni.
Thanks very much. That's the CEO, Bandana Benkosi.
Thank you.
We have to go back to trade, Dr. Laila Fourie. Thank you deeply for creating time to speak to us, and happy Women's Month.
Thank you so much. It's been absolutely wonderful to chat to you and to the listeners. Have an awesome day.
Thank you.
Cheers.
We're going to take a quick break to the ad, Bantwana Benkosi, and then right to the news. We're tracking that press conference of Santaco, as you all remember. Hopefully it does start at 1100 hours, and we will take it up with you. But stay tuned for the news just right after the ad.
Know what's hiding behind colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is, consumers. Front of package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org, HEALA.org by 30 September.
This winter, Hatfield Motor Group's turning the key to your dreams. When you buy a new, used or demo vehicle from any Hatfield Motor Group dealer between 1 July to 31 August, you're not just riding off in style, you're entering to win your share of the whopping 500,000 rand. That's right, 5 lucky customers will give away with 100,000 rand. Don't be fooled. Look for the dealership with the Hatfield car. So if you're in the market for a new ride, head to Hatfield Motor Group today and drive into the floor. Rated #1 in service.
Change arrives kicking and screaming. It's challenging, impatient, confusing. Change is a moment of peace. Change is life affirming. Change is growth. Change is opportunity. We've always believed it's worth investing in. For over 3 decades, we have been committed to seeking out the best investment opportunities for you, wherever they may be. 91. The world of change. 91 is an authorized FSP.
Power News.
The
top stories at the Sawa Eldorado Park residents gathered to bid farewell to 4-year-old girl that was allegedly raped and killed by her father. And the South African red meat industry says foot and mouth disease is totally out of control. With the news at 11, a very good morning to you. I'm Nyakalo Tefu. Eldorado Park residents have gathered at Don Maitman to bid for a girl that was allegedly raped and killed by her father at Baragwanath Hospital after being admitted in the intensive care unit due to severe beatings. The child's father and mother have been arrested for that include murder, rape, and child abuse. The accused yesterday abandoned their bail application. Power News reporter Bafana Nzimande is attending the funeral, and he joins us live on the line from Don Maitman Hall in Eldorado Park. Bafana, take us through what is happening where you are.
Nyakalo, people of different age groups have come out in their numbers to bury the 4-year-old girl that was allegedly raped and killed by her parents. The child's body was carried inside the hall in a tiny white coffin. The mood around the area remains somber as the community demands justice for the child.
We're sad. We're absolutely sad. This is a tragedy for our community. And I think we want to send out a strong message. If you see something, say something. Don't leave children and say it's not my business.
The parents made the right decision to abandon bail, because out here in Eldorado Park, they would not have received us very well. We would have looked at them, we would have given them words, and at the end of the day, they would have committed suicide. And I'm not here to judge, but from my side, they are better off inside than outside.
Nyakalo, both